Hi, this is Dr. Nikki, and I want to talk with you about the running record that you just saw. Really interesting information. So Coco had the student page, and she was just kind of going through. Now, let me tell you how I recorded the notes. The first page that you're going to have is the part 1 of the addition teacher recording sheet. And so you'll notice on that page, it just parallels what's on the student page. So 0 plus 1, she knew right away. So that's a check. 2 plus 1, she knew right away. That's a check. 3 plus 2, she knew right away. That's a check. So then we get to 2 plus 6, and she makes an error, but she self-corrects. So when you code that as 7 and then 8. I put 7, and then I put a not equals 8. I put self-correct, because she corrected it immediately. And you want to know that kids are thinking about their thinking, so it's important to record those self-corrections. And then 4 plus 6, she finger counted on. So I stop and I think right there, that's where the point of intervention is, because she's coming out of first and going into second. And first grade, 10 is a designated fluency. So she needs to know all of her 10 facts like that, right? Speed and accuracy. So I noticed that I circled FCO. She has accuracy. She got the right answer, but she finger counted on. And we need kids to know what the 10 facts are. And then when we get to the doubles, she's having more trouble. She seems to know some of her doubles because she's using really highly sophisticated strategies. When we get to other like doubles plus 1 fact, she refers back to her doubles. But yeah, she doesn't have that automaticity with her doubles. So she even got that one wrong. She put 7 plus 7 is 11, which is wrong. And so that's a do not know. You would circle the DK there. Now, and she did not self-correct there. 5 plus 6 was 11. So she got it correct. She took a little time, and that's where she kind of got into the space of doing some head counting, some mental stuff, and some finger counting. And then 7 plus 5, she knew that was 12, but again, it was finger counting on. And then 3 plus 8, again, finger counting on. And then 7 plus 8 was 12. 8 plus 9 was 13. So these are do not knows, and you would circle those. And then 10 plus 4 is 14, which she knew. Now, what some children will do when they're doing the running record is they will even skip some of the harder problems and go down to the, add a 10, because those tend to be traditionally easier facts. So you'll notice at the bottom of the sheet that there are codes: automatic, wrong operation, self-corrected, attempted self-corrected, counted all, finger counted on in head, prolonged thinking time, and didn't know. So what we see with Coco is we see that she has automaticity, especially for those beginning facts, right? And then she starts doing some finger counting on and counting on in her head. So she's really kind of switching back and forth in between strategy levels. So she's kind of doing some strategy level 2s and some strategy level 1s. So remember, if you look at the codes at the bottom, counting, any kind of counting on your fingers is a strategy level 1. Counting on in your head is a mental strategy level 2. Using known facts is a strategy level 3. So she's really kind of all over the map in terms of the different strategies. She's using all those strategy levels. And I found out more about her using known facts when I went in and did part 2, and she let me know, oh, well, I know 6 plus 7 because 6 plus 6 is 12. But when I ask her what 6 plus 6, she doesn't have that automatic recall for that. So that's interesting. And so that's the first part of what you do in the running record. That is the addition teacher running sheet. Then you go on to the addition flexibility assessment. And on that assessment, she knew the 0 facts, because remember that children should be able to explain the strategy that they are using. So she knew 0 facts. She could explain 1 facts. Adding within 10, she again self-corrected. We got to 4 plus 3. She said 8. Then she goes, oh no, 7. When I asked her what she was doing, she was telling me that she was counting on in her head. And then the make 10 facts, she knew those. They weren't automatic, but she knew them. And then doubles facts, she started kind of stumbling a little bit with doubles facts. She knew the 8 plus 8. She knew 9 plus 9. She had a lot of prolonged thinking time, a lot of finger counting on. When we got to doubles plus 1, she knew those, and she was able to refer back to doubles through her doubles. So that's like a strategy level 3. This is what the research tells us, that kids will have different strategies for different number combinations. Doubles plus 2, she knew, but this is quite interesting. So she knows the count-on strategy. She could explain it to me. And she explained it. She said, when you have bigger numbers, you start with a big number. When you have smaller numbers, you start with a small number. So she knows that. But yeah, when she gets to 6 plus 8, I asked her about 6 plus 8. And then notice when I was doing compensation, I asked her about 8 plus 6. Both times she started at 6, which is the lower number. She didn't start at 8. So that's just a teaching point. That's not what I would start with her, but at some point she needs to know that when you're finger counting on, that you start with the higher number. Remember, it's levels of sophistication. So to know to finger count is a level of sophistication, but then within that there's a sub-level. So if you count on from the smaller number, it is less sophisticated than counting on from the higher number. And with Coco, she knows the strategy, but she's not using it. And then for the harder facts like 4 plus 9 and 7 plus 4, she does have a strategy. It's finger counting on. What's interesting about this case is that there's some automaticity and there's some accuracy, but there's not a lot of accuracy when you start getting to the higher addition facts. And then add 10 she got. So where would I start? Once you get all this data, you have this data, what do you do with this data? With Coco, I would start right with adding within 10, because I want her to be coming out of first grade really fluent with that adding within 10. I don't want her to finger count on for 4 plus 3. I want her to know that. Remember, first grade fluency is adding within 10. Second grade fluency is adding within 20. So it's appropriate that she's still doing some sort of finger counting, but you really want to have phased that out by the end of first grade. So that's where I would start with Coco. I would start with addition within 10. I would get her some flashcards, make sure she knows those, probably some visual support flashcards, and then phasing out to the more abstract flashcards with just the numbers. Visual support flashcards showing her things like 4 and then 3, so she can see that that is a doubles plus 1. Then after I did adding within 10, I would go on to the make 10 facts with Coco, because she needs to know all of her facts within 10, like instantly. And then I would go on to really making sure she has that automatic recall of those doubles. So when you get the data from the running record, you design a program of implementation starting at adding within 10, make 10, and then doubles facts, right? Because these are all levels that kids are working at. And then I would go on to doubles plus 1, doubles plus 2, and then the harder facts. Remember that in a lot of the Asian countries where they score really high in math, that they use 10, getting to 10, they use that 10 as a base. We tend to use doubles as kind of our base in the United States. But what the research shows, Henry and Brown wrote a really good article 2008 about it, is that if kids can understand 10 and how to bridge 10, they can learn the facts really quickly. So if I'm trying to get to 10, especially with those harder facts. What is 9 plus 4? Get to 10 and then count on. What is 16 minus 9? You get to 10 and count back. So all of those kinds of things. So getting to 10 is super important. And then the final part of the running record was just a mathematical disposition interview. And it's interesting. She said, yeah, sort of. Interesting. Kids really like math games. And she said it. I like the games. I don't like it when it comes on a homework sheet. So when you're thinking about how do I get her to practice, you're going to think game. Right. North Carolina has some really good games. Sparklebox has some really good games. MathWire has really good games. Sparklebox has the game boards that are already by, like Learn Your 5, Learn Your 6s, Learn Your 7s, and so forth. It's interesting that she knew what facts were easy for her, pretty much. I mean, not completely, but a lot. And then she was able to name the trickier problems. And what does she do when she gets stuck? She was able to talk about that as well. So that's what the addition running record looks like. Thank you for joining me. Happy mathing, and try this.